Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome to the Wobble Enjoy Sports channel. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Let's get stuck straight into round number 23. Round 23 starts on Thursday night from the Sydney Cricket Ground. The Sydney Roosters host the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles on tab.com.au. The Roosters are $1.60 favourites. Manly are $2.30 outsiders, and this will be the 140th meeting between Easts and Manly. The overall head-to-head record stands at 87-50 with 2 draws in there, and the ledger goes towards the Manly Sea Eagles. These two sides only met a couple of weeks ago, or a month or plus ago, and the Manly Sea Eagles won a really cool game of footy. Not like the highest quality game of footy, but really ultra competitive, and it's going to be the same thing on Thursday night. I reckon the loser leaves town in this game. Even though Manly are in a better position than Eastern Suburbs, which makes it more important for the Roosters, I do think that this game might, by and large, effectively kill one of these club seasons if they do fall to the L. In that game, a couple of weeks ago or a month or so ago, Manly completed at 40 out of 46, giving them an 86% completion rate. The Sydney Roosters, even with James Tedesco in the side, they completed 26 out of 33 sets, giving them a 78% completion rate as well. Plus, they were awful with their discipline as well. 8 penalties to 3 were the Roosters. And just on Manly as well, last weekend when they took on the Dragons, the stats just don't line up to a Manly victory. The Dragons, they completed 81%, whereas Manly completed 68%. The possession was 60-40 by and large. It was just all one-way traffic if you look at the stats for the Dragons, but just a few missed tackles and a couple of line breaks there for Manly was the difference in the end, and maybe some ordinary bunker officiating as well. Let's get stuck into the team list for both these sides, starting with the Sydney Roosters. And by and large, it looks like, I think, the back line for the Roosters is unchanged. Going into the forward pack, JWH, Brandon Smith, Collins, Siwa or Josh Wong actually starts in this game with jersey 11 on his back. Nat Butcher and Victor Radley round out the back row, and the interchanges Hutchison, Brown, May, and Fletcher Baker. And then shifting over to the Manly Sea Eagles now, their back line is unchanged. The forward pack is Sipley, Croker, and Lodge. The back row, Olakawatu, Tuolangi, and Jake Trbojevic. And the interchange is Ben Trbojevic, Aaron Woods, Dean Madison, and Ethan Bullymore. The hoodoo, though, the hoodoo that the Roosters have on Manly, even though the Seagulls got the overall head-to-head record, the Roosters have not allowed Manly to beat them at the SCG since the 80s. I'm pretty sure about that, but she's been a few decades since the Manly Seagulls have defeated the Roosters at the SCG. Manly, though, they did beat the Dragons at Wollongong for the first time in 2 decades last weekend. I think the Roosters will be a little bit more desperate. Those second half fade outs from Manly are graphic as I keep on waxing about it. And yeah, that needs to change. But I think in front of their home fans, I'm going to tip the Sydney Roosters though. But this is a true flip of the coin game. Shifting into Friday night footy, and there are 2 matches, and they are 2 beauties in waiting. Friday night footy looks awesome. The first game, kickoff at 6 p.m, Gold Coast Titans versus the Warriors. The Titans are $3 outsiders. The Warriors are $1.38 favourites. This is the first meeting between the two this season, but overall, it is the 32nd meeting. The ledger stands at 19-12 in favour of the New Zealand Warriors. And while the Warriors have the overall head-to-head record, the Titans have actually won 3 in a row versus the New Zealand Warriors, including a Golden Point extra time game last year in Auckland. And since 2020, the Titans have won 4 of the past 5 encounters between the two. The Warriors last beat the Titans on the Gold Coast in 2019, but everybody knows by now, surely, that the Warriors have a huge fan base that turns out for them on the Gold Coast, even at Brisbane. But there's just something special about the Warriors and the Gold Coast fan base where they really come out in force. This is going to be a great game, really will be. Let's get into the team list for the Gold Coast Titans now. AJ Brimson has been named, even though he looked like he could have missed out in this game because there was an abdominal tear, but that didn't stop him from scoring a try and having a decent game against North Queensland this past Sunday. The rest of the back line, Aaron Schupp comes into the centre, and Philip Summy shifts out to the wing, or stays on the wing, sorry. And that's the back line changes. The forward pack is Fodawaker, Verrills, Isaac Liu, Fafita, Stimson, and Aaron Clark. And the interchange is Campbell, Randall, Khaleesi Haas, and Isaac Fa'asuamala-Aui. I was anticipating to see Big Tino's name there, but maybe I was a week off or so. But so he should return then next week, should Big Tino. And then going into the New Zealand Warriors team list now, and they're coming off the bye. It is CNK at fullback, DWZ and Montoya, the wingers, Berry and Pompey in the centres. Berry has found a nice bit of form. Wouldn't say a purple patch, but he's going really well at the moment. The halves is Metcalf and Johnson. The forward pack, Aiden Fanua-Blake, Egan and Mitch Barnett with jersey 10 on his back. Ford, Niakure and Tohu Harris in the back row. And the interchanges Walker, Bunty Afoa, Bailey Sirinen and Josh Curran. And an awesome name on the reserves list there is Jazz Tavanga. So possibly could be a late inclusion, but it's just great to see that bloke's name there anyway. Yeah, this could be a really exciting game of footy, fast paced, but I think while the Titans put on like the best defensive display they've put on all season long against the Cowboys, it could be a different story against the New Zealand Warriors. The New Zealand Warriors have proved to be a level above that of the Cowboys this season so far. I'm going to tip the Warriors, but not with a whole lot of confidence. It's going to be 1-12 for me. This should be an absolute beauty between the Titans and Warriors, but I'm tipping the Warriors 1-12. And the main event on Friday Night Football emanates from Bluebet Stadium, the Panthers versus the Melbourne Storm on tab.com.au. The Panthers are the favourites at $1.38, whereas the Storm are exactly $3. This will be the 43rd meeting between the two, and the Storm have the overall head-to-head record, 29-13. But since 2020, these two sides have met 8 times, and the Panthers have won on 5 of those occasions. The Storm did defeat the Panthers last year, 16 points to nil in a game that was unfortunately not up to the standard that we were all hoping for, but that just is what it is. Going into the team lists, so Penrith, they do have a change, and that is Zach Hosking has been shifted into the centres. Tyrone Peachey has been suspended for a swinging arm, a high shot. So Zach Hosking has been named in the centres, man. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. The forward pack, Leota, Kenny, Harris, Sorensen, Martin and Yo. And the interchanges, Luke, Smith, Eisenhuth and Salmon. Going into the Melbourne Storm, Meaney, Warbrick, Seve, Young Tonapapia, Xavier Coates, Munster and Hughes. So Justin Olam is still dropped from what I can see. And then the forward pack, Trent Liero, Nelson Asofa-Solomona returns from a dislocated finger. Josh King rounds out the back row. The interchange, Tom Eisenhuth. So the Eisenhuth brothers go head-to-head. Alec McDonald, Tepai Moroa, and Alicia Katoa. So yeah, Justin Olam has been dropped. These two sides met only a month or 6 or so weeks ago at Marvel Stadium, and the Panthers, that scoreline should have been bigger. The scoreline that you see that happened a few weeks ago now doesn't resemble how dominant Penrith really were. From about the 25 or 20th minute, when Penrith scored their first try, it was complete, utter domination without Nathan Cleary. Nathan Cleary is there, and I know Isaac Tungo had a field day that night too, and he's not playing in this game. But still, while this, I think this will be a little bit closer. I'm gonna say that they win this one 13 plus. Not an extravagant one, maybe like a 14, 16 point victory. But yeah, I think Penrith will have this one in a canter just quietly. And then on Super Saturday, one of the best Super Saturdays of the season, maybe the best, and I don't give a bugger what you say, it is the main event of the entire weekend. The Battle of Queensland, North Queensland versus the Brisbane Broncos from Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff, and it is completely sold out. The Cowboys are 2.25 outsiders, and the Brisbane Broncos are $1.62 favourites. This is the 60th meeting between the Cowboys and the Broncos have the overall head-to-head record at 37-20, with 2 draws thrown in there as well. But Brisbane haven't won at Queensland Country Bank Stadium since 2020. When it was first opened, let's get into the team list for the Cowboys first up. And look, Valentine Holmes has been named. He is going to the judiciary tonight to challenge to downgrade his high shot that he put on Jaden Campbell. If he is successful in downgrading it, he will play this Saturday. It's so risky, man. I personally think he should have just taken the 3 weeks and come back in the final round of the regular season against the Panthers. But Holmes is going in to challenge it to hopefully play this Saturday against Brisbane. If not, I would imagine one of 2 things. Zach Laybutt just comes in as a straight swap for Holmes, or Kyle Feldt comes in and there's going to be a bit of a musical chair shuffle between the other 3 backline players as well for the Cowboys. But the rest of the backline as well for the Cowboys is unchanged, really. And then the forward pack, Taumalolo starts with jersey 10 on his back. So he's starting for the first time in a really long time, really. I'm pretty sure anyway. But Taumalolo with 10 on his back, that's interesting. That means Cohen Hess shifts into the back row. And then the interchange is Granville. Griffin Neame returns from a concussion. Hylam Lukey returns from a hamstring injury off the bench. And Jermaine Tornua-Brown in jersey 17 rounds out the Cowboys team list. I personally think Cohen Hess is more of a front rower. But Hylam Lukey, he's been out for 6 weeks. So you probably wouldn't have him starting. I think Cohen Hess will probably find his way into the front row as the game does go along. But I'm personally more of the opinion that Cohen Hess plays so much better when he is a front rower, and it's proven this year. Even though it was all a rocky start for everybody at the start of the season, Cohen Hess has been great. He's been great for a couple of months, if not a few months now. But that is the team list, and Taumalolo starts in jersey number 10. Oh man, he is going to rip and tear this weekend. That is cool. Well, at least he's going to try his absolute best, because they are coming up against the second best team in the competition in the Brisbane Broncos. This is not going to be easy. It's going to be such a big event. Going into the Broncos now, Reece Walsh, he was an absolute nightmare in round number 2. Arthurs and Selwyn Cobbo are the wingers. So Corey Oates still hasn't overcome his leg injury yet still. But Jesse Arthurs is still really good. I think you all know now that I think he is a solid player. Staggs and Farnworth are the centres. Mann and Reynolds are the halves pairing. And then the forward pack is Flegler, Walters Haas, Capewell, Brendan Piakura, and Pat Carrigan. And the interchange is Smoothie, Jensen, Hetherington, and Keenan Palacia. And just for some giggles, Jordan Ricky has been named on the reserves list in jersey number 20. So that'd be a great inclusion for the Brisbane Broncos, wouldn't it? Of course, I'm tipping the North Queensland Cowboys to do the double. It is a double Battle of Queensland Derby doubleheader this Saturday up at Townsville. The women's kicking it off first at approximately midday, and then the Cowboys at 3 p.m., the men's at 3 p.m. So come on, you Cowboys. This is such a massive game. It's not if we lose this game, we're out of the finals, but if we lose this game, I don't think we can lose another one for the rest of the year. So this is huge. Had the opportunity to jump up into fifth on Sunday, but as everybody has alluded to, like Bloke in a Bar, I share the same opinion. I think they just expected it to happen. It wasn't like they disrespected the Titans. I just think they believed in their game plan, or just a bit too much. I don't know. Just they went in thinking that it was just going to happen. And the last tackle options as well, for me personally, left a lot to be desired. The Cowboys got tackled twice. Three times on tackle number 5, a couple of kicks on second or fourth tackle that just wasn't needed. And it did feel like that one eye was on this game this past Sunday. So fingers crossed Holmes gets off tonight. It's going to be really tough though. And fingers crossed that the Cowboys get the job done 1-12 in what will be another classic game between the Cowboys and the Broncos on Saturday. And for the rest of Super Saturday, we go over to Western Australia to Perth's Optus Stadium for a double header. The Dolphins versus the Newcastle Knights kicks us off first of all. And on tab, the Dolphins are outsiders at $3.20. The Knights are $1.34 favourites. This is the second meeting between the two sides, and the Dolphins did pip them, well, not pip them, but they won it late at McDonald Jones Stadium much earlier this season. I think it was round number 4, maybe round number 5, but they won that game, I think, to the tune of about 36-20 or something like that. Obviously, that the Dolphins, this will be their first trip to Perth for the Newcastle Knights. This is their first trip to Western Australia since 1996. They played the Western Reds there twice at the Wacker, and they have a 1-1 record in Perth. So this is their first trip as a club, as a franchise, to Perth since 1996. Going into the team list for the Dolphins, and just quietly, I thought the Dolphins were really disappointing. They came off the bye and just, yeah, it was a disappointing performance. They bloody let me down. So Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow at fullback, Azarko and Tessie New in the wingers. Cody Nikorima has been shifted to the centres again. Valence Tavare as well, the other centre, and Anthony Milford and Sean O'Sullivan are the halves. Bromwich, Marshall King and Nichols are the starting front rowers. Cole Fusi, Lemuelu and Kenny Bromwich are the back row. In the interchanges, SASA, Josh Kerr, Isaiah Katoa with jersey 16 on his back, and Jared Wallace with jersey number 17 on his back. Going into the Newcastle Knights, who are making a huge charge for the finals this year, man. Kalen Ponga, Dominic Young, Gagai Best, Marzu Gamble Hastings. The forward pack, Jacob Saifidi, Crossland, Thompson, Frizzell, Fitzgibbon, and Adam Elliott. The interchange, Mann, Jones, Hetherington, and Matt Croker. Newcastle literally are on fire right now. They're playing such a zoned in, powerful, fast game of footy, man. And against this Dolphin side who did, who were at a stage they're looking like they were going to lose 13 plus to the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs this past weekend. I'm going to tip the Newcastle Knights to win this game 13 plus, not an extravagant one, not something like 30-0 or 40-4, just like a good, strong 16-point victory to the Newcastle Knights in this game. In the main event on Super Saturday, still from Optus Stadium in Perth, South Sydney Rabbitohs versus the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. On tab, South Sydney are the favourites at $1.26. Cronulla are $3.60. This will be the 94th meeting between the two, and the Sharks have the overall head-to-head 47-43. Cronulla, their history in Perth, there is a bit there. This will be their 4th trip to Perth, but their first since 1997. They have a 2-1 record in WA. And South Sydney, they may as well just be called the Western Australian Rabbitohs. They've played there 11 occasions. This will be their 12th trip. And the South Sydney Rabbitohs have a 5-6 record when they play in Western Australia. Let's get into the team list news. And for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, the team that defeated the Tigers last week, their backline is unchanged. The forward pack, Arrow, Cook and Tom Burgess. Kolomatangi, Michael Cheek, Cam starts with 12 on his back, and Cameron Murray in the lock. The interchange, Mawali, Havili, Jed Cartwright and Talis Duncan with 17 on his back. Going into the Cronulla Sharks, Connor Tracy, Craig Fitzgibbon said that he will be the fullback for the remainder of the season. So Tracy, Katoa, Ramian, Talakai, and Mulatalo. So Mulatalo returns from an injury last week, and Talakai does shift back into the starting centre position. And Trindle and Hines are the halves pairing. The forward pack, Hanley Nuele, Brayley and Rudolph, Nikora, and Graham and Cameron McInnes, and interchange Williams, Hazelton, Hunt, and Jesse Colquhoun. And last time these two sides met was in round one. South Sydney won convincingly, and I think they can do it again. I think the Rabbitohs have had the Sharks' number in recent seasons, barring one occasion. So I'm going to tip the South Sydney Rabbitohs to win this one by 13 plus. Now we get into Sunday, and there are two games on the Sunday. The first game is from CommBank Stadium, the Eels versus the Dragons. The Eels are $1.24 favourites. The Dragons are $4. This is the 41st meeting between Parramatta and the St. George Illawarra Dragons. However, just as a bit of a trivia, bit of pub ammo, the St. George Dragons, if you include their history as well, this will be the 150th edition between the Eels and the Dragons. So just a bit of pub ammo if you want to include that piece of history. And if you include all of it, it stands at 83 wins to the Dragons, 55 wins to the Eels, and a handful of draws thrown in there as well. But just exclusively St. George Illawarra versus the Parramatta Eels, it is the overall head-to-head records leans to the Eels. It's 21-17 with 2 draws thrown in there as well. Since CommBank Stadium opened in 2019, these two sides have met 4 times at the venue, and just about every time, barring on one occasion, the Dragons have come to play, bro. These games have been pretty wild and fun, and it stands at 2-2. So the Dragons have won the past. Oh, sorry, they did win 2 in a row versus the Parramatta Eels at one stage there, but Parramatta did flog them last year, big time, 48-14. But still, the Ledger stands at 2-2 at the venue, and the Dragons seem to play out of their shells whenever they play the Eels at CommBank Stadium. Parramatta Eels team list news. Gutho at fullback, he's looking like me and Todd Payton. He knows a good thing when he sees it. Isaac Lumi, Sean Russell are the wingers. Penasini and Simonson the centres, and Dylan Brown returns in the 5/8 position with Mitch Moses in the halfback. The forward pack, Offa Hingawi, Junior Paulo and Joey Lussick are the starting front row. The back row is Mattison, Cartwright and Hopgood. And the interchange for the Eels, Moretti, Davey, Grigg and Makatoa, and then the St. George Illawarra Dragons, who I tipped them for the wooden spoon, admittedly at the start of the year, but credit to them, man. They're showing a lot of fight. They are showing a bit of pride in the jersey. I thought they were really unlucky to not win that game. I think they were the better team, even though they didn't win against Manly. They were coming to get them, but they just weren't, unfortunately, good enough to get across the line. So the Dragons, they've got Sloan, Fengai, Sully, Lomax, Ravalawa, Amone, and Hunt. And the forward pack is Molo, Little, Lowry, Burns, Dan Russell, and Jack DeBellin. And the interchange, Maltheisen keeps his position after he debuted last weekend. Michael Molo, Couchman, and Zane Musgrove. I give the Dragons a sniff, but I am going to tip Parramatta to win 1-12. They've been on the road 2 weeks in a row, Townsville and then Melbourne. They're back in front of their home fans. I'm going to give the edge to the Parramatta Eels, but if they do not show up and play, they're in danger, man. I think the Dragons could get them. I think this could be a really good game of footy. And the final game of round number 23 is from GIO Stadium, where the Raiders take on the Tigers. On tab, the Raiders are favourites at $1.28. Wests are $3.60. This is the 42nd meeting between the two, and the Raiders have a 22-19 overall head-to-head record that they are leading against the West Tigers. Canberra have won 6 in a row versus the Tigers since 2019, and 10 of the past 11 since 2016. That one game where they didn't win, that was the Tigers. They beat them in Canberra in 2018. So encroaching 5 years since the Tigers last defeated the Raiders, and also to add on top of that at GIO Stadium. The Raiders, Rapana, Hopewade, Chris, Timoko, Kotrick, Jack White and Fogarty, and the forward pack, Papali'i, Wolford, Tarpanay, the starting front rower, usual starting front row, and forward pack. The interchange is Adrian Trevillion starts in jersey 14. Oh, wow, so Tom Starling's been dropped into the reserves. I I think that's his debut, and he's from North Queensland. So go you good thing, Mr. Trevillion. I'm sure this is his debut. I apologise if it's not, but it's great to see because he's returning, or he did cop an ACL injury at the start of the season or at the start of last season. So that's a great story. Emre Gula, Pasami Solo, and Ata Mariotta in jersey number 17. And then going into the West Tigers, Bula, Norfoluma, Toa, Tupou, Staines, Laurie and Brooks. And then the forward pack, 12 starts, David Clemmer and Apikosa, the front row, Papali'i, Bateman and Pole. In the interchange, Simpkin, Matamua, Atasi James and Asu Kapoa. Just looking for Uto Ikamanu, and it just says on NRL.com that he's been replaced by Alex Twal. Is that a dropping? Is it? Holy crap. Oh, by the way, he did make his debut, Mr. Adrian Trevillion. It was last year against the North Queensland Cowboys. So he has made his NRL debut, but it's his first grade game in over 12 months or so. That's brilliant. That is truly brilliant. Dude, the Tigers, they're another team that, even though it's not been there really for the past few weeks up until last week, the Tigers, they looked decent against the South Sydney Rabbitohs last week, but I think the Rabbitohs were really playing below themselves too, just quietly. Last time these two sides met was at Campbelltown Stadium a couple of months ago, and the Raiders nearly bloody blew it big time against the Tigers, only winning by a penalty goal right at the end there. I don't know why, but I give the Tigers a sniff. I kind of want to tip them as well, but the Raiders, they're not going to put in two shithouse performances in front of their home fans 2 weeks in a row. I think they will rectify that. They'll owe their fans one, and I think they'll just beat the Tigers. I give the Tigers a sniff. I give the Dragons a sniff as well. So it could be upset Sunday 2 weeks in a row, man. Yo, that's it for me, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Ace High Tips show. It's just been brilliant, the support that I've been getting. Hope you have a really nice weekend. Hope your team wins, except for the Brisbane Broncos. And I'll see you guys in the next episode, which will be the NRLW Tip show. Thank you very much for the support again. Take care. Adios.